Morning is touching the window. You're breathing soft by my side, watching you sleep while the light grows, and feeling a sunrise of new love inside. And I'm learning to love a real flesh and blood woman instead of a fairy tale dream. I'm falling in love with a flesh and blood woman, 'cause fairy tales aren't what they seem. Fairy tales aren't what they seem. Boo-hoo. You were my idol, my princess, back when we first had begun. I saw you soft and defenseless. Oh, I was your shield through the rain and the sun. So high in a tower enshrined you, worshipped you down on my knees, and thought that this love was so heart true, so blindly imprisoned while holding the keys. But now I'm learning to love a real flesh and blood woman instead of a fairy tale dream. I'm falling in love with a flesh and blood woman, 'cause fairy tales aren't what they seem. Fairy tales aren't what they seem. Ivory towers get lonely, princess is lonelier still. I finally saw it, but only when there was almost no love left to kill. I saw in the end what was needed, only the real and the true, and seeing with sight unimpeded, that dreams don't compare to the flesh and blood you. Yes, I'm learning to love a real flesh and blood woman instead of a fairy tale dream. I'm falling in love with a flesh and blood woman, 'cause fairy tales aren't what they seem. Fairy tales aren't what they seem. Yes, I'm learning to love a real flesh and blood woman instead of a fairy tale dream. I'm falling in love with a flesh and blood woman, 'cause fairy tales aren't what they seem. Fairy tales aren't what they seem. Fairy tales aren't what they seem. Fairy tales aren't what they seem.
Well, they sure aren't what they seem.
Oh,
Welcome to another episode of A Question of Meaning.
howdy, folks.
And we're Katie and Arthur. I always say with Arthur and Katie, so I thought for today I'd do something different.
Yeah,
Katie and Arthur.
That's right. We're equal opportunity employers here.
Well, with that, I was so taught to, always put myself last, to serve myself last.
That's sad. Women make up for it in other ways.
That's for sure. We sure do.
Well, usually you have to.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've talked about that.
Well, we thought we'd have another free-for-all episode today where we, and then actually it was interesting that we said, well, maybe we'd talk about the why of this show, question the meaning of A Question of Meaning. And that was Arthur's idea. And so that was an interesting choice of songs. He kind of sprung that on me to do, but that's really that's what that song is about, is that
kind of a pseudo meaning that was attached to relationship to begin with.
Right. What the unexamined life is not worth living, and that's what an unexamined relationship is usually kind of that fairy tale, our cultural idea of the knight coming in, the white knight coming in and sweeping the princess off her feet, riding off into the sunset and no problems, and so and exploding the myth of that, and that the flesh and blood really is better than the princess in the ivory tower. And I would say that
And sometimes you kind of wistfully. I mean, wasn't it nice to be worshipped? Guess who I wrote it about?
Sure, of course it was great to be worshipped. That down on your knees part, sure, love it.
Reminds me of, never mind.
Well, I mean,
Erskine Caldwell line.
and what amazes me is in this supposedly post-feminist era, that women still expect men to get down on their knees with a large engagement ring to propose marriage. What? You mean this isn't some mutual decision you guys come to out of practical? We this really works for us. What is this? Still the man having to propose?
Those
God,
loathsome shows. It's very judgmental. I'm very judgmental. In case you haven't noticed, on The Bachelorette and all that unspeakable, those living snuff films or something. I don't know what those television shows.
Yeah, we've caught a tiny bit of a Bachelorette show.
Like, a bevy of hoes and one hunk, or vice versa.
You've got to be joking.
Hoes and hunks.
And that's funny. I'm
just jealous. I wish I looked like that.
That's right. And what I just had the thought of was that, from my perspective, they seem so scripted and staged and not real.
Really?
Even though they're supposedly real reality shows. But then I thought, but
that's where those people act all the time. Of course it is.
But isn't that funny? It just really hit me.
Half woman, half baby.
But not. But you're pulling out the people that are really egregious examples of it. But I mean, just
kidding?
the average person out there. That's what we're really talking about here is a life of pretense, and I just saw a reference to this, living an inauthentic life. Well, I just keep thinking of this word inauthentic. You'll be interested. It came from, I was reading a profile of Mike Huckabee, the ex-Arkansas governor, in the New Yorker last night. And he said that his life choices were caused by his seeing that so many people lived inauthentic lives. And he didn't want that for himself.
Sure.
And I always thought there was something interesting about him. I mean, he still has a lot of wrong ideas, but there's something about him that I don't find as threatening as a lot of conservatives because of this aspect of him. But anyway, so that word really stuck with me. It resonated with me, and I think that's what we're talking about here is that the reason we don't live lives true to ourselves, true to who we are, when we don't question the meaning of existence, and the reason we don't is because, and this comes straight out of what we're working on now, that we are all innocent by reason of insanity, where we take our cues for what is real from our culture, from our society, and we all so desperately want to belong and to be a part of the group that to be normal, to be accepted, you have to accept the rules. You have to accept the beliefs of what it is to be a member. And so we all try to adjust who we are to fit those rules and those norms. And we all live in fear of being exposed as abnormal.
Rejected.
And rejected, that's right, because if you're abnormal, you're shunned. And so that's why we live inauthentic lives, because we're trying to aspire. And high school, Arthur's talked about the horrors of high school, of trying to fit. But that's when it's most obvious, because that's when we, as all of us, are really most trying to be members. And the cheerleaders and the football players, they're the ones that fit the norm the best. Conform. So they were the popular. They were the top of the heap.
The apotheosis of the style of what's in.
Right, because what that means is that they happen to match the cultural beliefs of what it is to be normal. And so that they went there, and the rest of us, we all suffered from our lack of normality.
We thought those people really had it together, and we were losers.
That's right, and most of us, then maturity is kind of settling in to accept the fact that you aren't normal, that you'll never really quite fit in. So you try to find your little niche in society. And you meet people that are at your same level of not fitting in.
And the caste system.
That's right.
Very much alive and well in any culture.
And so I think living an authentic life is when you start questioning the meaning of those cultural norms. Are they really valid? Is there any basis in reality to these, or is this just a a kind of a cultural ID, identification of us as different from the culture over there that it really has no basis in reality, or very tenuous basis in reality. And that it doesn't really mean anything, and that carving out my own life, being who I am without regard for what other people think about it, and being true to myself, is actually, you're actually finding a level of normality, because this is who I am.
Well, what's that?
Well, he always goes there.
Damn right I go there. Because this is the insidious part. We think those people really have their act together.
That's right.
We think Bill Gates, just is filled with light and happiness. Are you kidding? They don't know who they are. How in the hell can you be happy if you don't really know who or what you even are?